May 4th, 2024. What a wonderful day of the calendar year, you're thinking. I know. Not just because of the relationship to Star Wars, or the fact that the weather was finally beginning to heat up. When I tell you about May 4th, 2024, maybe you recognize this date. For some of us, maybe this date is near and dear like an anniversary or birthday. For some of us, maybe this date is full of devastation. And for some of us, maybe this date, you have no idea what happened, and you wish that I picked a more relatable date. I'm not sure. I'll never know until you tell me. For myself, May the 4th was a dreadful day. The day where I found out I was selected to author a 3 to 4 minute speech that was to be performed in front of my entire graduating class. For me, this development was similar to being marched to the bottom of a frozen, slippery, open-faced cliff and then being forced to try to climb. But furthermore, I was assigned this task and given 2 instructions. Make the speech 3 to 4 minutes and tell us your story. My story? Do I have a story? I pondered. I did not know that this sentence I was given would actually turn out to be the blessing of having the opportunity to tell my own story and would change my life and my perspective on stories forever. The power of stories has forever been overlooked, ignored, and discarded. As I stand here today, I will have the opportunity to tell you some of my story. But why listen? I heard Shane Gillis is performing down the street. He probably has some better stories than I do. Today, I will have the opportunity to enlighten you on the key ways to become a powerful storyteller and how these wonderful things we call stories can become dangerous. As far as storytelling goes, my whole life I've been desperately searching for the secret recipe to stories. The secret. There is none. Well, there's not one specific thing that can make your stories go from a cloudy recollection of a third grader's day at school to the masterful storytelling of those like Thomas King or William Shakespeare or even Ernest Hemingway. In fact, there's 3, and I'll try my best to enlighten you on each. Have you ever had a friend that you knew was full of shit, to put it broadly? A friend whose stories would always make you turn your head and whose stories, after further analysis, couldn't possibly be true. If you shook your head yes, you probably thought of this friend as soon as I said full of shit. And if you shook your head no, you're probably that friend. Everything comes down to honesty. This is one of the first qualities that is vital to becoming a powerful storyteller. Honesty. Without a respect for the integrity of your stories, they are powerless. How can one possibly expect themselves to be taken seriously when every other word out of their mouth is false, inflated nonsense? Honesty is the first of our necessities that make stories powerful. I hope you have the decency to tell your stories with the power of honesty, but who knows? I'll never know until you tell me. I remember growing up, my mother always told me when I was confused about one thing or another, "Oh, you'll understand when you're older." It wasn't until a few years ago that I finally understood the wonderful idea of perspective. Now, perspective is an important thing to understand. Whether it's your own perspective or the perspective of your audience, either are as important. In 2 aspects, perspective is important in storytelling. For instance, you get to formulate your own perspective when crafting your story. We do this every single day without even realizing. When we tell a story, we pick our diction based on the opinions we have on the situation and what we've witnessed in our lives. I warn you to be careful what experiences you allow to shape your perspective on situations. A reflection of life experiences and self-awareness is key to ensuring you are able to prevent your own demise into the realm of false perspectives on stories. Our perspective on stories is the only power you have in your story, the only weapon that will allow you to shape your story into a powerful telling of your life. What's your perspective? I'll never know until you tell me. Now that I've handed you a loaded gun, I'll make sure you don't shoot your foot off. Stories have immense power, and with great power comes great responsibility. Now, Uncle Ben was no scholar, but his famous quote still applies to many things, most importantly stories. The danger of stories lies in the lack of them. To only have one story about a person, topic, or even an event, that's when a story becomes dangerous. There are 2 categories that influence the danger of stories: the listener's danger and the speaker's danger. We have all experienced both of these. Let me tell you how they've affected me. I had an acquaintance once, we can call him William, whom I was not very fond of. I didn't know him very well, only interacted with him a couple times. My best friend approached me and told me a single story he had heard about this William. He told me that William had done a terrible thing. The only story I had ever heard about William was that he stole $10,000 from his grandparents. For days, I hated William. I contributed to the whispers that spread around the school about William. I gave him dirty looks in the hall, and then I found out the truth. His grandparents had given him this money as a donation to the foundation he was trying to start to help sheltered dogs. What a contrast. I had taken a story that I had heard with no evidence and chose my following actions based on the lens of a perspective that was not true. This is the listener's danger. Now, the listener's danger can have devastating effects, but even more so can the speaker's danger. A speaker has the power to control the entirety of the effects of their story. The number one weapon speakers use, sometimes even when they do not realize, is manipulation. As humans, we manipulate each other every single day, whether you believe it or not. Humans have an issue embedded into our genetics. We all want. Every single day we want, we desire, and we yearn for things. And to get what we want, we resort to manipulating others, most commonly through the use of story. We mend, mold, and craft our stories to have effects on the audience that will benefit ourselves. It is all of our responsibility to strip our minds away from the selfish nature we were born with as humans, not to take the power away from our stories, but to use their power for good. We must recognize the danger of stories and attempt to find the truth inside a world of lies. Stories are a tricky topic, but all of us have a choice to make. To use the power to do good in the world instead of falling into the trap that makes stories dangerous for us all. I'd love to hear the beauty and power in each and every one of your stories. I wish I could see you all for who you truly are as people. We all have a powerful story, but yours, I'll never know until you tell me.